In the headlines this hour, President Park Geun-hye replaces about half of her 17-member cabinet in her first major shakeup since taking office last year in hopes of turning things around after the April ferry disaster. The 2014 World Cup in Brazil kicks off with an opening ceremony and the first match between the host country and Croatia. And U.S. President Barack Obama says Iraq needs America's help immediately and over the long term as Islamist militants advance across the nation. Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to the program. Thanks for joining us tonight. President Park Geun-hye has carried out a much-anticipated cabinet shakeup, putting the government in full gear for sweeping reforms. She nominated 7 new ministers out of a total of 17 on this Friday. Our presidential office correspondent Choi Yoo-sun reports.
As highly expected, President Park has nominated her close aide and former ruling party floor leader Choi Kyung-hwan as finance minister and deputy prime minister. The former bureaucrat's experience in economic policy making and later in parliament were highly valued in the pick, as the president has a 3-year plan to revitalize the local economy. President Park also named Choi Yang-hee, a computer science and engineering professor, as her science and ICT minister. The nominee's career-long contributions to the development of convergence technology and innovative thinking were acknowledged in his nomination. For new education minister and second deputy prime minister Kim Myung-soo, the president of the Korean Educational Research Association was named. He is expected to play a key role in reforming the country's education system. Chung Jong-sop was nominated to replace Security Minister Kang Byung-gyu, who came under fire for the government's lax management of April's ferry accident. As our culture minister, President Park named Chung Sung-gun the president of ARIRANG TV and Radio. The presidential office spoke highly of the former journalist's excellent communication skills and understanding of the president's administrative philosophy. Lee Ki-kwan, the former vice labor minister, was nominated to head the same ministry. To replace gender equality minister Cho Yoon-sun, who was named the presidential secretary this week, ruling party lawmaker Kim Hee-jung was nominated. As for the maritime minister, who had offered to resign after the Sewol-ho ferry accident recovery ends, the presidential office said he will stay put for now. By naming her close aides into the cabinet and the presidential office, it's expected that President Park will further secure her authority in running state affairs. Her office says that there will be no other nominations until the government restructuring bill to establish a safety ministry passes parliament. Choi Yoo-sun, ARIRANG News.
And the country's rival political parties, as you can imagine, had very different reactions to Friday's cabinet reshuffle. The ruling Saenuri Party welcomed the news, saying the nominations reflect the president's commitment toward reforming the government and economy. As for the timing of the shakeup, which came before the president's nominee for prime minister had been confirmed by the parliament, the ruling party said it hopes the opposition understands that no further time could be wasted. But the opposition, New Politics Alliance for Democracy, was not so quite understanding there. They said the reshuffle violated the country's constitution, which says the prime minister must recommend cabinet ministers to the president. If confirmed by the National Assembly, President Park Geun-hye's pick to be her new finance minister, Choi Kyung-hwan, will have to hit the ground running. He will enter office faced with a number of burning assignments, and our Shin Se-min goes over the tasks ahead.
Setting the nation's economy on a steady path to recovery will be the biggest task for the newly nominated finance minister, Choi Kyung-hwan. In a face-to-face with the reporters, he said he aims to place a premium on successfully carrying out the Park administration's 3-year economic innovation plan announced in February. And perking up domestic consumption, which has been suffering from a prolonged slump, is his first line of business. The nation's slow recovery is well reflected in a recent report by Korea Development Institute, which lowered its growth outlook for this year by 0.2%, citing a negative impact from slow consumption in the private sector, influenced by the April ferry disaster. Overhauling debt-ridden public enterprises is another issue he'll take on. In May, President Park pointed out that the combined debts of public institutions as of the end of 2013 amounted to nearly $510 billion, showing expenses were greater than the national debt. The nomination comes at a time of increased scrutiny of the finance ministry, which stands accused of not being proactive enough in carrying out reforms. Experts say Che's extensive experience and knowledge of economic policies and affairs will serve him well in his new role. They added that his close ties with President Park also stand to help him forge ahead with policy changes, which in recent weeks have been obstructed by varying opinions among government agencies and a lack of cooperation from the National Assembly. Shin Se-min, ARIRANG News.
The U.S. government is reportedly set to replace its point man on North Korea, Glenn Davies, later this year. Davies was appointed to the post of Special Representative for North Korea Policy in 2012, but failed to convince North Korea to stop nuclear tests and long-range missile launches, as Pyongyang did fire a rocket in April that same year. And multiple sources in Washington told Yonhap News that the outgoing U.S. ambassador to South Korea, Sung Kim, is being considered to fill the position. Sung Kim was the special envoy for the six-party nuclear talks before he took the ambassador position. The international news agency AFP will open a news bureau in Pyongyang by the end of this year, this according to the French weekly Le Point. The possibility was believed to have been discussed back in April this year when an AFP delegation led by its global news director Philippe Massonet visited North Korea. If the bureau opens, AFP will become the fifth foreign news agency operating in North Korea. AFP has yet to comment on this issue. You are entering into the most dangerous country on earth is how the teaser for the first ever American movie dealing with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un begins. Despite these ominous words, it's clear from the interview's 1.5-minute trailer that the movie is hardly sinister in nature. The action comedy centers around how a talk show host and his producer, played by James Franco and Seth Rogen, embark on a CIA mission to assassinate Kim Jong-un, a mission they're clearly not cut out for. Kim Jong-un is portrayed in the film by Korean-American Randall Park. The movie is set to hit the big screens in the U.S. in October, and there's no word just yet on whether it will be released in South Korea.
For the latest in news that impacts Korea and the world, join Kang Chae-ri for a lively half hour that covers politics, business, international news, and much more. Live at 8 every weeknight on ARIRANG TV.
Human Rights Council headquarters in Geneva on Thursday, finding ways to persuade. Speaking at an international forum on wartime sexual violence, a senior Korean diplomat said Japan's recognition of its past regarding the so-called comfort women could prevent future cases of mass rape during times of war. The slogan of this forum is "Time to Act." Connie Kim tells us more.
The Korean government is stepping up its diplomatic campaign to press Japan to repent and compensate for the women it forced into sexual slavery during World War II. Speaking at the Ending Sexual Violence and Conflict Summit in London on Thursday, Korea's second Vice Foreign Minister Cho Tae-yeol said Japan's horrific crime should never be repeated and swift action needed to be taken for the sake of the victims.
The Japanese government needs to acknowledge its responsibility for the comfort women issue, make an official apology, and take responsible measures in order to prevent such tragedy from happening again.
The minister emphasized that Tokyo recognizing its past wrongdoings and taking action are needed to move forward.
We will not be able to construct a sexual violence-free world if there is no repent, apology, and probe into past crimes.
An estimated 200,000 women, mostly Korean, were used as sex slaves by the Japanese military during the war. However, Tokyo claims that the issue was settled through a 1965 treaty that normalized the two countries' diplomatic ties. The London gathering, the largest of its kind, hopes to find ways to bring an end to war zone rape in parts of Africa and the Middle East. Bringing together more than 100 countries, the 4-day conference hopes to come up with practical measures to prevent wartime sexual violence and expand international support for the victims. Connie Kim, ARIRANG News.
Nearly 1 decade after launching negotiations, Korea and Canada have finally initialed a free trade agreement. It's expected to be sealed before the year is up and go into effect next year. Our Hwang Ji-hye reports.
Korea is getting a step closer to expanding its free trade bloc. Seoul's trade ministry said Friday that the nation had initialed a free trade agreement with Canada. The two countries promised to do the official signing in the second half of this year, and if all goes well and the two nations' parliaments sign off, the bilateral trade pact is expected to take effect in 2015. Over the next 10 years, each side will get rid of tariffs on nearly 98% of traded goods. And while Korea's manufacturing sector is expected to get a boost from the trade pact, the local farming industry, especially those doing business in livestock products, may take a hit. Canada will lift all of its current 6% tariffs within 2 years on Korean automobiles that make up more than 40% of Korea's exports to the North American country. The Korea Trade Investment Promotion Agency says Canada's abundance of natural resources, such as oil and natural gas, will be a boon for Korean exports of equipment associated with developing those resources. However, import tariffs of up to 72% on Canadian beef will also be gradually lifted over a 15-year period. Canada is Korea's 25th largest trading partner, with the bilateral trade volume standing at almost $10 billion. If and when the deal goes into effect next year, Canada will become Korea's 12th FTA partner. Hwang Ji-hye, ARIRANG News.
Foreign currency deposits in Korean banks hit a record high for the second straight month in May. The Bank of Korea says that foreign exchange deposits of residents in Korea stood at almost $60 billion as of the end of last month, up $1.2 billion from a month earlier. The central bank attributed this rise to a spike in Chinese yuan deposits as investors sought the currency out for its higher yield. Residents include local citizens, foreigners, as well as foreign companies who have stayed in the country for more than 6 months. The 2014 World Cup officially kicked off in Brazil, and with the opening of course, a ceremony and the first match on Thursday or dawn on Korean time, Friday morning. Our Song Ji-sun tells us more about this opener and what's in store for the next round.
The opening ceremony epitomized the beauty and passion of the South American country. The theme of the performance was nature, the people, and the sport itself. And for the finale, the ball and center split into a stage for pop singers Pitbull and Jennifer Lopez, who sang the official song, "We Are One." In the opening match, the first goal of this year's World Cup came from the home team, but it was an own goal by Marcelo on the 11th minute. Brazilian playmaker Neymar equalized soon after, though, and he slotted home a controversially awarded penalty in the second half to give Brazil the lead. Oscar secured the victory with a long-range shot near the end to make it 3-1. 3 games are in the lineup for this Friday, or early Saturday, Korea time. Starting with Group A, Mexico kicks off the first game versus Cameroon at 1 p.m. in the city of Natal. That will be 1 a.m. on a Saturday morning here in Seoul. And we have the Group B match, one of the most anticipated, between Spain and the Netherlands. They made in the final back in South Africa 4 years ago, with the Spaniards coming out on top and picking up the trophy for the first time. Chile, another strong shot from the continent, will go against Australia at 6 p.m. at Cuiabá, the same venue at which Korea will play their first match. Song Ji-sun, ARIRANG News.
And the World Cup would be incomplete without the throng of fans in red T-shirts shouting on the street here in Korea. The Red Devils, of course, the name given to supporters of Korea's football team, have announced that they will cheer for the squad at Gwanghwamun Square for the group matches instead of Seoul Plaza in front of City Hall. Seeing tens of thousands of people gathered at Seoul Plaza has been sort of a signature of Korea's football fever, but that has been made impossible this year as there's currently a memorial altar set up there for the April ferry disaster victims. And it's time now to recap the week's domestic headlines, and our Yudian is here with us.
Thank you very much for that. The 2014 World Cup has been hogging the headlines here in Korea as well. Now, 중앙일보 headline reads from 1954 to 2014. World Cup, a chance for hope. Now, the photo right below is actually a photo that dates back to the night just before the 1954 World Cup when Korea beat Japan 5-1 in the Asian preliminaries. This was when Korea was struggling to recover from the Korean War, and the article notes that when Korea beat Japan, the very country that colonized and ruled Korea, the Korean people were given fresh hope. Now, the paper compares the hard times back in the 50s to Korea of today, when the country is reeling from the April ferry disaster that's left more than 300 people dead or missing. Now, the paper cites an expert who says the World Cup could be a chance to uplift the country's low spirits. Now, staying with the World Cup, but looking at some state-of-the-art technology. A 조선일보 headline here reads, Germany's tank corps grows stronger with big data. Now, the tank corps is actually how Koreans refer to a Germany's soccer team. Now, the blue 4 dots seen here, 2 on the shoulder and 2 on the knees, indicate where the sensors are attached to collect data on the player, such as velocity, the heart rate, and also the direction of shooting by the minute. Now, as you can see, all the data is being sent to a central server, which is where it is analyzed, then sent to the coach's tablet PC. The coach then came up with proper training methods and tactics and even calculated the chance of a specific player making a successful pass or goal. Now, it's been exactly 59 days since the tragic Seoul ferry disaster, and still the tragic stories continue to break our hearts. Now, the title of this story, with a headline that says, "A mom, dad, brother, all dead, a 7-year-old youngest son represents mourning family." Now, you see on the right here the photo of the family of the 4, and like the headline says, the boy is actually the only remaining survivor, and also the photo below taken by a survivor shows his mother holding onto a life jacket inside the ferry during the time of the accident. She reportedly asked crewmen to make an announcement about finding her youngest son, and only when she heard that he was safely rescued out of the ferry did she put on the life jacket. Her body was found in the sunken ferry days after the accident. The bodies of the boy's older brother and father were found drifting in waters around the site of accident days and weeks later. Now, the 7-year-old boy stands alone at the mortuary with his uncle seen in the photo here. And I'll leave it at that for this week's look at stories from the Korean dailies.
International condemnation has erupted over the hostile takeover of northern Iraq by Islamist militants as the government there struggles to mount a counter-offensive. With more on this story, we are joined by Paul E. at the News Center. Paul, these insurgents have claimed 2 more towns in just the last day, this time in the eastern provinces. What's their end game?
Well, the ultra-extremist militant group is threatening that they won't stop until the Iraqi capital has fallen. The rebel fighters have faced little to no resistance in their advance towards Baghdad, with reports saying the entire divisions of the Iraqi army have already surrendered. Meanwhile, we're now hearing that Iran will help Iraq fight off the Sunni insurgency. This as U.S. President Barack Obama says the turmoil there demands immediate help. Our Connie Lee has more.
The U.S. may be getting involved in Iraq once again. With Islamist militants gaining ground in Iraq, U.S. President Barack Obama said he isn't ruling out U.S. action in the country.
I don't rule out anything because we do have a stake in making sure that these jihadists are not getting a permanent foothold in either Iraq or Syria, for that matter.
Speaking to reporters at the White House with Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott on Thursday, President Obama said the U.S. is looking at all the options to help the country.
I think it's fair to say that in our consultations with the Iraqis, there will be some short-term, immediate things that need to be done militarily. Our national security team is looking at all the options.
Iraq seems to be collapsing under the weight of Sunni Islamist militants called the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, or the ISIL. The offshoot terrorist group of al-Qaeda is surging through Iraq, seizing several towns and cities, and is now threatening to take the capital, Baghdad. Video released Thursday shows a victory parade of the fighters, clad in black, parading through the seized city of Mosul, Iraq's second-largest city. The rebels, displaying the black flag of the ISIL, want to create an Islamic State across Sunni areas in Iraq and also in Syria. Connie Lee, ARIRANG News.
Now, turning to the United States, the American soldier Bo Bergdahl has returned home after being held captive by the Taliban for 5 years. I'm sure his parents are incredibly relieved to see their son again, but it looks like there's still going to be a long and difficult road ahead for this young man.
That's right, Cherry. Sergeant Bo Bergdahl was taken to the Brooks Army Medical Center after landing in San Antonio, Texas on this Friday, where he'll be reunited with his family. Officials say the 28-year-old former POW will undergo what the military calls a reintegration mission to help him resume a normal life. Bergdahl was handed over to U.S. forces in Afghanistan last month in exchange for 5 Taliban commanders who were held in Guantanamo Bay. His release, however, has sparked a firestorm of controversy. Critics from both sides of the political spectrum have condemned the prisoner swap, as Congress was not given any advance notice, adding that the Obama administration violated its policy against negotiating with terrorists. In congressional testimony on Wednesday, Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel said the swap deal was messy and imperfect, but defended the decision. Some of Bergdahl's former comrades have also voiced outrage, saying he had deserted his post and cost the lives of 6 soldiers who went looking for him. The Pentagon has concluded he left his post without authorization and will investigate the circumstances of his capture.
I see. Now, finally, moving to a deadly mine collapse in Ukraine that's left at least 7 dead and 2 missing. Paul, what's the latest on this rescue operation?
Well, Ukrainian state emergency services say they've been working through the night to save the 2 missing miners still trapped underground, but hope is running out as more bodies continue to be recovered under the heavy debris. Authorities say a methane gas leak triggered the explosion that ripped through the mine on Thursday, 300 meters below ground. The subsequent blast caused the mining shafts to collapse and damage ventilation systems. Rescue officials say the site was operating illegally and ignored safety regulations.
It is an illegal coal mine, according to our current findings. It has no contract of permanent and obligatory provision of rescue services between this mine and trained rescue stations, as is compulsory. This enterprise has no official records.
Many of Ukraine's industrial mines are known to be underfunded and poorly equipped. The coal mine is located in the small town of Krovsk in the east of the country near the regional capital of Donetsk, where pro-Russian separatists have been fighting with government forces. Chetty?
All right, Paul, thanks so much for that update, and we'll see you again for Primetime News. And our Kim Bo-kyung is with us from the Weather Center to give us updates on weather front. So we are getting some rain in some areas in Korea. When is it stopping?
Teddy, short answer to your question is most likely later tonight. Now, rain. What a rainy week we've been getting so far here in the country, and more is dropping over Chungcheongbuk-do and both Gyeongsang-do provinces at the moment. Taking a closer look at what's going on out there. Now, we are seeing cloudy skies nationwide, but there's a relief as the layer of unstable atmosphere moves out towards the East Sea. Those in the inland regions might want to keep in mind that another 5 to 10 millimeters of rainfall accompanied by strong winds and thunder will most likely fall through later tonight. And now we're left with news that we've been looking forward to hearing all week. Sunny and clear skies are forecast over the weekend, and conditions should be perfect for spending time outdoors. Taking a closer look at tomorrow's readings, Seoul and Gwangju hit 29 degrees while Daegu jumps to 31. On to other places, Jeju makes it to 26 degrees, Dokdo and Mount Kumgang reach 20 and 27. That's all the news I have for you at this hour, and back to you, Teddy.
Well, thank you very much, and that will do it for now, but I am coming back with my partner Sean Lim at 10 p.m. Korea time. See you then.